I watch you every morning.
I'm so glad.
I'm really like such a fan of yours.
Oh, that's so sweet of you to say.
I mostly do entertainment reporting, and for you, I always think that you do the most non-boring press junket interviews.
Thank you. That's my goal, is to do the most non-boring press junket
They're
interviews.
so boring usually.
They're usually very boring because the generic thing is, oh, and what was it like to work with? Which is the worst question.
Somehow you're able to do it without it seeming sticky.
Right.
So my question for you is, how do you angle in to get them to open up the way that they do? They like you.
I think.
Like you.
Thank you. I hope so. Thanks. Because this is what people I think always hesitate and don't do. You have to kind of be open to what's happening in the room. Everybody in the world walks in with this list of questions, and they're just reading the list, and they're not even listening to the people because they thought, oh, this is a clever question, I'll ask this. And what I do is I really try to be as open to the room as possible. It's like, oh, this person's sitting there with a chocolate milkshake. Do you like chocolate milkshakes? Or whatever. You really try to pick up on what's happening in the room right then. Often there's a 20-minute discussion over lunch, like what we're going to have for lunch. And I'm like, the salad, is it that important? That kind of thing. It's really, so...
Reporter to reporter,
yes,
I commend you.
Thank you.
Last year on the little announcement you had to make as far as screening. I've had so many interviews where things have been asked to be cut out. I'm not about that. I'm not about that. What did it mean to you to be really strong and take a stance and say, hey, we don't do that?
I've actually gotten, and this was not my intent, but to my pleasant surprise, a lot of compliments on that.
I tweeted you a couple times.
Okay, all right, well, thank you.
Support and solidarity,
right. Well,
Sam.
that's very cool of you. I appreciate that. And I think the idea was, I think it's all part of the deal. I think that if a actor opens themselves up to participate in press stuff, you're not trying to embarrass anybody, you're not trying to humiliate anybody, and I think it's perfectly appropriate for an actor to say, hey, directly, I'm uncomfortable with that, or I don't want to do that. But that, what troubled me there is that there were these sort of other forces, trying to kind of censor the conversation, and I would never do that. I would never participate in anything like that. If that's going to happen, you tell me ahead of time, and then I'll decide, frankly, not to come.
Last question. I know you need to go moderate.
Sure.
How do you get to that point when you're not quite there? I'm not a Sam Rubin yet. Hopefully one day I will be. But back in the day, at one point, were you a desk assistant or a PA or an AP?
I got really lucky, and I was a magazine writer for a long time, and I'll tell you this because this is what I always tell anybody else, is try to find the place. I always tell people, look for the Titanic. So when the morning news started on Channel 5, I was just watching it at home, and I could tell they couldn't fill the time. And so here, I'll give you the quiz.
Okay.
If they can't fill the time, who's got the problem? Whose problem is that? It's the problem of the producer laying out the show.
Right,
I don't have enough show.
Yeah.
So what would be helpful to that person?
Something exciting and Sam Rubin-y on air to spice it up, a little pizzazz.
So I called that guy up. And when does that guy realize he has the problem? He has the problem
No viewers.
Right, at 4 in the morning.
Bad ratings.
Right, when he's ready. So anyway, I found out who the right person was. I called him at the right time.
Okay.
And I said, I can do 5 minutes a day all by myself. I don't need any help. And he was like, literally, can you come in tomorrow? So that's what you have to do. People always I want to be on the Today Show. Well, yeah, but the Today Show's doing fine. They don't, you've got to find the place that needs the help.
If you feel as if back then it was a different time where it was social media, would you have been putting videos on YouTube and utilizing that platform?
I suppose so, but I think I'm going to say to some degree everybody does that.
Uh-huh.
So I think it's funny. We had a musical artist on today, a guy named Keith Sweat, who's a very established kind of romantic R&B artist.
Okay.
He's very successful. And he's been doing this for 30 years. And somebody said to him, you know what, it would be harder. He says it's harder to break in now than it was back then.
Okay.
So I thought that was kind of interesting.
You should host a luncheon for aspiring reporters.
Right.
I could talk to you forever, but
Okay.
I know they need you. I
All right.
appreciate your
You bet.
time.
Nice to see you.
Thank you
You bet.
so much.
Okay.
I'll be there on Thursday, actually.